No comparative impact arguments in the winning arguments. You are going to vote negative for a couple reasons. First off, they conceded that North Korean conflict is most likely scenario for nuclear war. That's more evidence. They've also conceded that deterrence doesn't check. The full evidence indicates that the country is too unstable in the status quo. The only thing they can be able to solve is skeptic because it provides us a clear diplomatic route to stabilize the situation. Means no deterrence checks arguments. Means that was their only argument to comparative impact arguments. Even if they win the entirety of the evidence, not the more probable nuclear warnings. Means you should probably fall to the more probable scenario for extinction. Now, you need to debate. He's conceded too many arguments in the one of this vote. First off, all their evidence is really, really old. They've conceded the silver evidence from 1 and C from 10-1 indicates that the House is going to go to the Republicans now in the South. They've conceded silver. It's also the most accurate prediction. They've also conceded the crystal ball predicts the House. The GOP is going to win the House. They have 98% accuracy rating. They've also conceded the prediction markets are predicting that the GOP is going to win the House. They've also conceded that predictions markets are apparently more accurate than any political pundit or any poll could be, which is what all their evidence is based off of. It means that even if they win any of their unions claims, they still lose the debate because prediction markets put their money where their mouth is. They've also conceded that the GOP controls momentum in the status quo. They don't have any evidence speaking to that. They've also conceded that there's no turnaround in the status quo. Our evidence assumes their arguments about new campaign strategy and stuff like that indicates that it's not going to be good enough to actually get Democrats out and vote. Action is specifically key, specifically for Latinos. I'll get to that in a sec. He says Democrat triage tactics. I don't know what the impact of this is. This evidence is also really old. There's no reason that arguments wouldn't assume this now. He says momentum outweighs. First off, this is going to prove that the GOP is going to win the Senate back in the first, that the GOP is going to win the Senate. I'll get to that in a second. He says the House is not key. However, there's no evidence that is around this. The one evidence is pretty damn good. It indicates that if the GOP wins the House, the passage of SCIPTA is virtually assured. That there's probably they have no evidence for this question. It would probably mean that it would put pressure on the Senate to pass it, even if they didn't win, even if the GOP didn't win the Senate. Now the GOP is going to win the Senate. However, the only answer he reasons this is a new silver card. This evidence in the part that's not highlighted indicates that they are gaining momentum in the status quo and that they're increasing their chances of getting back the Senate. If their argument about momentum outweighing is true, then that means that the GOP having momentum towards the Senate means that they are going to be able to get the Senate and concede that momentum outweighs. We control momentum for both houses of Congress means we are going to win. Means that they are going to win both houses of Congress. Even if they don't, they're still going to be able to pass it. Now they announced the link debate. They say they don't care about the play. They've dropped a couple of meta issues that means they can't win the link debate. First off, they've conceded that the Latinos aren't going to show up in the status quo. Means there's only a risk of a link and no risk of a link turn. Second, we also control the issue unions, which is that the GOP is going to win. And the status quo means there's only an additional reason there's only a risk of a link. Now they've also dropped two cards. The trades also evidence indicates that there are a ton of Latinos who are skilled workers who want to come to the United States and work and go to U.S. universities. Means the plan obviously would affect Latinos. No answer to this argument. Second is the Dallas Morning News evidence indicates that even if this argument wasn't true, the plan would still be perceived as an issue towards amnesty and the illegal immigration debate, because that is how it's been spun in the past. Means that none of their evidence are relevant because they're speaking to the facts, not the perception on the ground. Now they've also conceded a couple of other arguments. First off, our uniqueness evidence on the question is much better. It's posted for theirs by a month indicates that Latinos are going to show up for the vote in the status quo. They've also conceded the contract evidence. The full evidence indicates that the Latinos have given up on the comprehensive immigration reform strategy and they just want a lifeboat. They want a short-term strategy that is just a piecemeal reform. They've also conceded that the plan specifically, as part of that reform, our evidence specifically mentions their plan would indicate that it would be that crucial step towards getting means we are crushing them on the link debate. There's only a reason they get Latinos to come out and vote because they're not going to vote in the status quo. They've conceded that swings the election. There's no means we get guaranteed risk of internal. Like he said now in the impact debate, he says hedge solves. I answered that in the overview. It's unstable in the status quo. The only thing that can actually solve that is skeptic because deterrence is working diplomacy along with deterrence is necessarily key. He says it's not key to relations. First off, our evidence is much better than this. Indicates that it's the one thing standing out. It means it's not going to be resilient. Their evidence is just talking about little maneuvers. That's not their evidence is just talking about little maneuvers. Skip is key to U.S. ROK relations. Cohen 2010 our strategic relationship between ground security cooperation, but today's $82 million trade deal is the most dynamic aspect of the strategic relationship. Free trade agreement represents the opportunity for leaders of Washington sold to upgrade our strategic relationship and read the benefits of economic relationship. More evidence Snyder 2009 is one. Managed performance cooperation to be able to components, lines, strength, and capacity to respond. The rest of the first task is identify shared interests, more challenge consistent with the objective of developing comprehensive lines of fashioning into liberal economic integration, address both the course FDA and the fact that the FDA has political implications with will influence both prospects and security lines. Now he says this BMD argument. There's no answer to Renzi. Only evidence indicates their evidence political posturing. It indicates that all of the best studies have indicated that BMD is inevitably going to fail in status quo. They've also seen that Obama's not going to try to push it on to maritime. He's not going to try to push it on to maritime. He's not going to try to push it maritime. He wants to put it in Poland. There's no evidence that indicates he would change his mind here. It means they can't win this because obviously missiles in Poland can't stop a war in Asia. Now, under the waivers counterplay, first he says LPR status is key. He's conceded the plan gives them worker authentication. That's the 1 and C, the 2 and C, and eliminating items. Look, the only difference between the plan and the counterplan is the counterplan uses a different agent and gives them parole instead of visas. They need a reason. Visas key. His only argument is this perception argument. First off, we solved the perception argument. He's conceded that the counterplan would be perceived. It wouldn't be perceived until after the election. That's the third card on the debate. The shown broad evidence from '93, which means that we still get all the reasons why perception is key. Also, they conceded we give it to everyone, which means everyone who graduates from the U.S. university would still go get parole into the United States, which means it's obviously perceiving it would be a predictable system because these people, as soon as they graduate, would say, here's a authorization for parole. You get to go wherever you want. The unlimited evidence case that gives them worker authorization solves 100% of the case. No solvency deficit besides perception. At the point they've conceded to perceived after the election, they have no deficit. Competitive disadvantage. There is no impact from the 2AC. They have conceded that there's no impact to decline. That's the Brooks and Wolford family. Indicates that our allies would step in to soften the blow. Means there's no risk of eternal impact to this. Also, they've conceded that taxes and all sorts of allies. A bigger reason why they are going offshore. And the status quo is also conceded that domestic industry will inevitably regenerate itself. There is no answer to this, which is Bailey and Farrell, which means even if there's a reason why it will go offshore, it isn't going to be a reason why we can't just regenerate the industry, which solves terminally now. University's advantage. There is no impact on nuclear terrorism. He says they can transport it. He's conceded that even if they could transport it, it becomes radioactive scrap metal. The impact to it is completely nullified because they can't use them effectively. He's also conceded there's no miscalc. The Quinlan, which is better than any car they read in this debate in case there's no potential risk for it. And also that we have adequate tech now. We're outcarting them here. That's the Talmadge evidence, the Renz evidence. We have multiple kinds of technology that can detect nuclear weapons anywhere.